right, well, we are going to turn now to something else that has been on the minds of people since, what, a little over a week ago. We had that leak from the Supreme Court. The fallout from the draft opinion that was leaked the reaction to that has only intensified this week. And abortion is now shaping up to be a top issue for midterm candidates across both parties. On Wednesday, senators voted on the Women's Health Protection Act, a bill that would legally protect abortion rights. But the Democratic-backed bill failed. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, a Democrat, joined all Senate Republicans in blocking the bill.
This bill today is ugly, winner-takes-all politics. It is full of aggressive pro-abortion provisions. Where's the tolerance? Where's the compassion? Where's the humanity?
Democrats, including Senator Patty Murray of Washington State, expressed outrage.
What we saw today is Republicans telling Americans all over this country, and women in particular, that their voice is more important than yours, that what they believe in is more important than your choice about your own body and your own family and your own future.
So Manu Raju, I think everybody acknowledges this vote was not going to ultimately prevail. They needed 60 votes, but what happened here?
Yeah, it was an interesting several days and a decision by the Democratic leaders not to try to get a bill to the floor that would have at least 2 Republican votes. Remember, there was no chance that this bill would pass. This was a messaging vote. It decided the Democrats wanted to essentially show that they were fighting, tried to preserve abortion rights, and Republicans were opposing it. There was no chance of this getting the 60 votes needed to overcome a filibuster. That was really the only way to advance the bill, or presumably they could change the rules of the Senate, pass it along straight party lines, but you need a simple majority of votes to change the rules in the Senate, and they simply don't have that, given the opposition from Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and as well as several others who are concerned about going that approach. But the decision by Chuck Schumer was to put a bill on the floor, the Women's Health Protection Act, that did not have the support of those 2 Republican moderate senators, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, 2 senators who support abortion rights, who believe that this bill goes too far. And instead, they decided to go with this other bill instead. And the reason why Democrats did that is for messaging purposes. They wanted to make it clear that Republicans were unanimous against them in trying to preserve abortion rights and essentially say that to overturn the Supreme Court's decision, assuming that that's what ultimately becomes law here. But now the problem with their message, though, became when Joe Manchin, the one Democrat who does oppose abortion rights, came out in opposition to this plan. And he said he would have supported that narrower approach that Collins or Murkowski backed. But Chuck Schumer did not want to go that route. Liberals in his caucus did not want to go that route. And as a result, it was 49-51 that bill failed. And it leaves, Judy, Democrats with really no clear path to dealing with this on a federal level. Really, their only hope is to convince voters to send more Democrats back to the Senate, for them to hold the House, presumably change the Senate rules next year by having enough votes, and then enacting legislation to preserve abortion rights. A really heavy lift in this difficult midterm environment, but that's really the only path they're left with if they want to deal with this on the federal level.
And Susan, as somebody who's covered this town for a little while, are these messaging votes, do they tend to be effective? Do they accomplish what the members want when they take them?
Big debate about that, because on the one hand, does it show that to your base that you were willing to stand up and take a vote on abortion rights, or is it a demonstration of weakness? Yeah. Democrats are supposed to be in control of the government. They control the Senate and the House and the White House, and yet they can't even keep their own members in line to pass a vote like this. So there was some debate within the caucus about whether this was the right thing to do, but they had nothing else they could do. Yeah. It was really their only play. And you know, if the firestorm we've seen in the past week, just wait till the real decision comes down sometime this summer, we expect. Because once a decision comes down, if it strikes down Roe v. Wade, as we expect, there are 13 states that have trigger laws that instantly go into effect restricting abortion, and there are another 9 states that have laws that were on the books when Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973 that have never been never been rescinded, those could also go into force.
So-called snapback.
Yes, instantaneously, these pre-roll laws could be enforced again. So the effect of a Supreme Court decision is not going to take any time to unfold.
And some men at the White House, they're watching all this, in a way, helpless to do anything. I mean, what messaging can they offer at this point?
So in terms of substance, what they have told us that they're looking into is potential executive actions that kind of nibble around the edges, if you will. So they've talked about perhaps seeing if you can use Medicaid dollars to assist women who may have to travel for another state to get an abortion if abortion would be outlawed in the state where she lives. But a lot of those actions and some of the other actions they're considering, they don't know if that's legal yet. So they were really looking towards this vote that failed on Wednesday. And their next step, the messaging from the president himself on down, is, like Susan said, you have to elect Democrats, whether it's to the Senate, to the House, especially in governors and state legislatures, which are going to take such prominent roles in the abortion debate, if and when Roe is overturned. So that's really the focus of the Democratic Party right now. It just illustrates just kind of how helpless they are to do actual action in the aftermath of this decision.
And I think Democrats are now acknowledging that they have not done as good a job as Republicans in translating the whatever public support there is for abortion rights into victories in these key congressional races and other races.
Right. I mean, Republicans I've talked to, when I've especially talked to them about the impact of abortion and abortion rights in congressional races this year. And, they say that at the end of the day, it's going to be the economy and inflation and other related issues that are really going to matter for voters this November. Yeah. And I think President Biden even flicked at that earlier this week when he was giving a speech on inflation, and he called combating inflation his top domestic priority. It's not voting rights, it's not abortion, it's going to be inflation. So how much this mobilizes voters this fall and has an impact, I think, is a really interesting question to watch.
I think one question is whether the dynamic of the abortion debate now flips, because the energy has always been with the anti-abortion forces because they were working towards something. And the people who support abortion rights saw Roe v. Wade as something they could count on. They didn't need to worry too much, even as some restrictions were enacted. Does that change now as abortions actually are banned in some states? Does that make does it make people who support abortion rights a single-issue voter on this front?
Are you going to see that energy go in that direction? Now, well, as we saw, both parties have tried to make the debate over abortion a rallying cry in an effort to bring pro-choice and pro-life voters to the polls. But one person has been relatively silent on this. That's former President Trump. In midterm primaries this week, Mr. Trump saw his endorsed candidate win, Alex Mooney of West Virginia, and lose Charles Herbster in the Nebraska gubernatorial race. Those races are viewed as a referendum on the power of the former president's backing. Susan, I'm going to come to you here on this. I mean, we are watching every one of these candidates that former President Trump has endorsed.
Yeah, he clearly has a lot of influence in the Republican Party. There's no question about that. He's clearly the face of the Republican Party. Very few Republicans are willing to challenge him, but there is just a little bit of a sense that Republicans, even those who have been on Trump's side, are willing to endorse other candidates in some of these primary races. We saw Mike Pence, for instance, endorse Governor Kemp in Georgia. Trump is very much in favor of Kemp's challenger because of Kemp's action in upholding the 2020 election. So I wonder if there is a sense that, you don't want to overstate it, but to some degree, are there those in the Republican Party who want to get a little bit past the moment when Trump could call all the shots?
And Mani Raju on the Hill, there has to be conversation among Republicans, and I'm sure they're sharing all of this with you as they watch these Trump endorsements play out.
Yeah, no question about it. And this is really just a key month for Trump. Yeah, he did get J.D. Vance through, helped him. There's no question that he played a key role in getting him through the Ohio Senate Republican primary. He had a split decision this past Tuesday, as you mentioned, in a West Virginia House race. He did help Alex Mooney beat David McKinley in a Republican primary. It was all about the support for the infrastructure law law that McKinley backed, Mooney opposed. Trump tried to get Republicans to essentially block that so Biden would not have an accomplishment. He was successful there. He was unsuccessful in the Nebraska gubernatorial race. His preferred candidate failed. But what will happen come Tuesday in the Pennsylvania Senate Republican primary? That is another big question going forward. Trump, of course, has supported the celebrity doctor amendment, Oz. There's questions about whether Oz can pull it off. He's in there in a very tight three-way race there. There's also the North Carolina Republican Senate primary. Also, he has backed Ted Budd, a congressman there, who's going up against Pat McCrory, the former governor, who's in a tight race there as well. And as Susan alluded to, there's the question about what will happen in the Georgia gubernatorial race. David Perdue is struggling in the polls against Brian Kemp. And in talking to a number of the Republicans, Judy, about David Perdue, a former senator, someone who they had served with for some time, they don't recognize the man who's on the campaign trail, who is espousing the same baseless conspiracy theories and lies that Donald Trump did, that the 2020 election was stolen, that there was widespread fraud that caused him the election here, but he had to do that to win Donald Trump's support. So it'll be a key several weeks here to test the sway of Donald Trump, Judy.
Yeah, we remember him as being very loyal to the president when he was in the Senate. And just quickly, finally, to you, Sun Men, the White House has to be watching all this with some interest?
Very much so. And actually, what's been interesting to me is how much they've tried to kind of use that MAGA messaging over the last several weeks. And especially this week, they kind of rolled out the, quote, ultra MAGA label to label the congressional Republicans' policies. And actually policies not just as it relates to, for example, the economy and taxation, but also as it relates to abortion. That's kind of like a catch-all label that they're using now. And you're going to continue to see that from the White House. They feel that it's an effective message. They have, they have polling that indicates that this is something that has a negative connotation with a broader voter populace. But at the same time, President Trump likes the ultra MAGA message, so they're also kind of co-opting it, particularly when Biden calls Trump, the great MAGA king. The former president likes that very much.
And just in a couple of seconds, Susan, we're only beginning to watch how the rest of this midterm year plays out.
Oh, and it's going to be important because there's every possibility Democrats will lose the House, and with that, it'll be a whole new game here in Washington.
A lot of conversation already about that here in Washington. Well, with that wonderful discussion, we thank all three of you, to Manu, to Sun Min, and to Susan for joining us and for sharing your excellent reporting.